At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Harry, welcome to the show.
Hello, Dr. Doug. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Just share with the audience. I know it, but where are you living?
You can't tell with my background, but I'm actually based in Bali, Indonesia, and it is a beautiful sunny day here.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's a beautiful, hot, sunny day here.
We're so close, Thailand and Bali, so close.
I know, it's amazing. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a fun conversation. For the folks, I'd love for you to kind of share your journey, because you've written a book, you've obviously done a lot of things, but I always find it interesting to find out what brought you to this point and doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend all day telling that story, but I'll give the summary. Summary is I'm actually from the US originally, from Michigan, and was raised there, lived all over the world, all over the United States. I would say just in general, I've been really fascinated by personal development my whole life. I got my first coach or mentor when I was 16 years old and just have continued down that path for a long time. Had a lot of interesting life experiences that took me all over, including joining the Air Force ROTC on a dare, and then deciding to run a youth hostel in Boston, and ended up getting my MBA from the world's #1 international business school, and then being hired by Amazon.com to do leadership development. And so my path was kind of all over the place. And at the same time, it made sense to me at the time. And throughout this whole process, I've just continued to really geek out on love and relationships and how do these things work and why are they so hard? And I've worked with therapists and coaches all over the world, just trying to figure out my own, like, what is this thing? And my parents taught marriage classes in their church. They still do to this day.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's been a big theme of my life. And when I was at Amazon, I just, it's like, I just started noticing that as time and trust was established with my executives, that they would start opening up to me about more things going on in their personal lives. And my undergraduate degree is in sexual psychology. So I started asking consent, hey, would you be okay with me talking to you about what's happening at home too? Because I think they're connected. And many said yes. And what I noticed was that when we put more attention on what's happening at home and matters of the heart, there was a really big shift. It was like these really successful people who had climbed the corporate ladder and done amazing things academically, they didn't learn. I'm gonna say we didn't learn. Most humans didn't learn how to really love in a way that's going to get us the love that we desire. We didn't learn great communication skills. We didn't learn great active listening skills. We didn't learn how to be with our emotions or how to handle conflict. And these are what it takes to really have amazing, juicy, peaceful, enlivening relationships. So when I started focusing on these matters of the heart, whether they were single or in partnership, I'd watch these leaders come back to work with more drive and focus and inspiration and happiness that would just ripple out into their teams. And I watched entire organizations change through focusing more on the bedroom than the boardroom. But I thought an impact in the boardroom. And I was like, this is amazing. This is so fun.
and it is so interesting. I know that when I was working with some small businesses, it was fascinating to see how, and as you say, I would say, look, the principles we're going to talk about here, because I got a lot into the human behavior part of it, whatever it is here, it's going to be at home, or whatever it's at home, it's going to be here. Yes. And as you start to change it, it's amazing to see the results. So I love that. What brought you to writing your book?
Yeah. So here I am at Amazon doing this thing, finding it way more rewarding to talk about the whole person instead of just the org. And what I discovered was that soon I started getting referred. So next thing I know, I'm working at Amazon doing leadership development by day, and by nights and weekends, I'm coaching executives at Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Relativity, SpaceX, Boeing, soon Hollywood actors. I'm like, wow, what is going on? This is a real area of need. Like, people's hearts really want to learn these things, and they want to feel supported and feel safe in the vulnerability and keeping the professionalism. So I'm like, this is awesome. How can I keep doing this? I decided to quit my job at Amazon and start touring the world speaking. And in 1 year, I spoke on 6 different continents. And what I found was that there's just such a hunger for this globally. So I decided to continue to stay out of Amazon and start my own company, which is called ReLearn Love. And I wrote my best-selling book called Relationship Agreements. And then from there, I'm like, do I have a copy right here? Oh, I do. So this is my book, Relationship Agreements. And now it's on Audible. My husband and I recorded it about 1.5 years ago together, which is really
fantastic.
fun. And then from there, just things kept on blossoming. And I just found this is my purpose. This is my path. Like running ReLearn Love and helping people learn how to love differently and being a mom. And so those are the two big things I focus my life on. And then this past about a month ago now, almost a month ago. So when this comes out, it'll be many, many months old. But when about a month ago, I got a chance to walk onto the TEDx stage, and it was such an amazing experience, and to share my heart and some tools that I really believe in for changing the world and how we turn conflict into connection. So it's been a ride, and I love it. I'm so blessed. And here we are. Now I get to talk to you.
Great. Here we are. Well, and you know what's interesting, and it sounds like you were extremely fortunate because of your parents. You know, what I look at, and, you know, we talk about divorce rates all over. And I'm not sure how it is worldwide, but I think it's at least equal, if not worse, at least what I see here in Thailand. But the thing that's interesting is that as children and as we grow up into teenagers and so forth, we're never taught really how to develop that relationship, even how to choose the right person that's going to be in a relationship with us and with us with them. And so often we see all of these choices being made that ultimately don't last for more than 1 year to 5 years or whatever that happens to be. What's your thoughts on how can we as parents help our children to start to learn more effectively, number one, how to choose a partner, and number two, how to be able to maintain that relationship in a healthy way?
I love these questions. I love that we're looking at intergenerational and not just right now.
Yeah.
And it's all connected, right? So first of all, let me back up just a moment and just say this question that I ask almost every class I teach, which is I ask people to just pause, and I want you to count how many happy, healthy, long-term couples you actually know. And you can define that however you want. What is happy to you? What is healthy to you? What is long-term to you? And what I find is that in over 90% of all my classes I've taught everywhere in the world, 90% of people are somewhere between 0 and 3 couples total.
Yeah.
Right? Like we just don't have the models. We don't know people who are actually doing this Disney thing, right? and yet we're supposed to be good at it. And we didn't learn how. These are skills that they were being developed at an early age, but we didn't learn the skills. We learned these things that don't work. And then we believe that we know them. And then we're socially shamed if we try to get support. Like if you go see a therapist or a coach, people think there's something wrong with you. It's not like being proactive and learning how to play tennis or learning how to start a business with a business coach. It's like if you go to a coach or a therapist, you're broken somehow. So we have to start shifting our mindset of we didn't learn this, it's time to learn it. And then there's this amazing, amazing organization that I love and I've done a little bit of work with called the Gottman Institute. And the Gottman Institute are the world's leading researchers on couples. And they've taken all this research now and said, what do we do to influence the next generation so they can have healthy, happy, long-term relationships? And the number one factor is teaching children how to be with their emotions, like really how to be with their emotions. And I say that as somebody who, you know, I even when I was going through my coaching certification, I don't think I've admitted this too many times, but when I was going through my coaching certification, I got to the final exam, I took it, all of my class passed, and I was put on probation for 6 months because I was told that I'm trying to get people to be happy too quickly. I'm not allowing people to be seen in their pain and their vulnerability and really go into it. And I was like, oh, and I spent 6 months working on this and going really deep in my own journey and noticing, wow, my feelings as a child, my parents are amazing. I love them so much. I'm so grateful to them. And they didn't have the tools that we now have access to around like just validating experiences as a child and validating our experiences now. so much of the time we're distracted or we're shamed or we're told it's okay and it's not okay, or to shut up, right? And so for me, I just learned the strategy of, if there's big pain, if there's loneliness or sadness, all I got to do is jump over it. Get to the happiness, just find it. Like, you can just ignore it, right? And that invalidation carries out in life. But how do we show up and really allow ourselves to be with the pain and the sadness and the joy and the ecstasy and the anger, whatever's there, not being afraid of the emotions, but learning how to be with them and then get the messages out of them. Because I really believe emotions are just messengers trying to tell us something really cool.
Well, and that is so fascinating, and it's so true that, don't cry, hey, quit crying. As a child, you're really not allowed, for the most part, to show your emotions, and to a large degree, is because as parents, we were never taught how to show our emotions,
right?
And so, if we could help the adults to understand that, it's time to go through that transformative program, whatever it is, and learn to show your emotions. And then from there, be able to allow your children to have their emotions and to be able to discuss that. As I was going through one of my certifications on coaching and talking about relationships, one of the funny things that I always remember about emotions was, the fellow said, "Hey, so here's something I never want you to do because you may get a divorce, but it's something that you really need to do." He says, when you get into a situation where an event happens and all of a sudden your partner or your spouse is just, you ask the question, "All right, my dear, what emotion came up to cause you to react this way?" and it's like, oh, okay, you're in trouble. But the reality is, and I have actually done that now. And, but first started, okay, here's the emotion that came up for me because I reacted too. But the reality is to be able to identify the emotion suddenly, number one, puts the personal responsibility on the individual that's experiencing the emotion. Because for the most part, events do not have emotion. They're non-emotional, but then we apply based on our perception and our experiences in life, will create an emotion that puts us into some type of situation. And so, I find it's interesting as you talk about it, helping parents to understand that if they can learn to experience their own emotions, then they can teach their children to do the same thing. And as you say, it's a generational thing. It may take 1, 2, 3 generations for that to actually occur.
Maybe, or it might just be one. We are seeing such a big shift. So we use, in our home, we use many different tools, but one of our favorites to use is the Gottman's tool called emotion coaching. And I can give you a really quick modified version of it just to get an idea in your head and think, okay, what can we do with this? And take it home and try it out. But you can emotion coach if you have children, but you can also emotion coach yourself, and you can emotion coach your beloved. It's just really amazing. So there's 4 steps. The first step is just witnessing, like, what happened? Like you were running, you fell down, you cut your knee and you're crying. Okay, we're going to witness this. Second, name the emotions. What are you feeling? Oh, you're feeling sad and surprised and in pain. Okay. Third is going to empathize. What has it felt like for you when you've fallen down and cut your knee? And if you've never fallen down and cut your knee, that's okay. What has it felt like when you have felt those same emotional concoction of sad, surprised, scared, and pain? We've all felt that before. We can at least empathize with that. Even if it's something as simple as, when I feel those things, it just sucks. That's enough. And then fourth is there anything you need? And this is where a lot of people who love to problem solve, myself included, can get tripped up. We try to just solve the problem for them. But we need to go through all 4 steps and let the emotions start moving. And then people can solve their own problems most of the time. But you can also offer problem solving here. So do you want a Band-Aid? Do you want some snuggles? Do you want help solving that thing that made you run in the first place? We can offer it, but we don't do it. And just these 4 steps, there's a lot more nuance to it, but when we start doing that for our kids, when we start doing it for ourselves, in the moment when we feel a big emotion, it could be joy, it could be anger, whatever it is, we witness, and when we're empathizing with that older part of ourselves. When else in life have I felt this way? That's huge. I had discovered so much about myself. I'm like, oh shoot, this fight that I'm having with my husband, actually is reminding me of that time with my dad. Shoot.
Oh, I know. And, you know, it is so interesting how we can experience all of that and have no clue that
Mm-hmm.
literally we are at the effect of our emotions. We're at the effect of those imprints that have occurred in our early childhood
Yes.
or even generational through DNA that cause us to respond in a particular way that may be so out of the way that we would want to respond.
Yes.
And to be able, as you said, you know, I love the fact as you recognize it and are aware of it, somehow that starts to take that away and it starts to calm it down.
Yeah. Yeah. And just recognizing that we all have our trauma responses, and that having a trauma response isn't bad, right? We all have trauma. Let me just put it out there. We all have trauma, and we all have these trauma responses. You know, at least 3 of them. Most people, it's like fight, flight, freeze. And the last one is fawning or fixing or people pleasing, right? Where it's like, if I just say or do the right thing, the situation will stop. We all have these, and it's okay. But what is really tripping up most of the world, I think, and causing a lot of conflict and a lot of disconnect between parents and their kids, between beloveds, between, you know, between best friends, even anybody we're close to. It's like we get in these situations where our trauma response is overriding everything and we don't know how to be with it. And when we go into a trauma response, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, our other person is going into their trauma response too. But oftentimes they take it so personally that you're doing this, and they believe the situation is not about the old memory that they're experiencing. They really believe the situation is a personal attack on them. So now both people are trying to protect themselves in these trauma responses, and there's no way to have a calm, connected, logical way out when you're both, I call it, in the sandbox, right? When you're both in this response. But we can actually learn how to take turns. We can learn how to be in a trauma response without hurting somebody else. We can learn how to not take things personally and just love on that person where they are and help them get back out of the sandbox and onto the bench, I like to say. So it's like, how do we bring them back to being in their grounded, healthy selves when you don't feel so flooded anymore, so triggered anymore? And from that place, you guys can really make some healing progress and be medicine for each other instead of poison. And that's so cool.
Well, and you know, I mean, I don't know if you see what's going on back in the U.S. All the
I try
all of
not
the
to.
anger and so forth. I was just reading an article about Supreme Court Justice Roberts, who was talking about the fact that, you know what, here we are in the Supreme Court, and each one of us have our own ideas. And yes, sometimes we totally disagree, but the point is we need to learn to work together and to understand each other. And although we may disagree and vote a different way, that's so important.
Yes.
And we see that going on in the US, where it has just become so aligned one way or the other. And there's so much anger that's going on and so
So
much
much anger.
frustration. And you know, you talk about love, and I love, you know, the ReLearn love, and I want to get into that a little bit more. But something that comes to my mind, I have a Christian background.
Mhm.
And one of the things that comes to my mind, and I always look at something and just kind of tweak it a little bit, you know. So when Christ said, you know, love God with all your heart, and the second commandment is like love your neighbors as yourself. Uh, you know, everyone says, okay, so I got to love my neighbors like I love me. But I look at that and going, let's reverse that. You can't love your neighbors unless you love yourself.
Yes. Yes.
And so when you talk about the 4 C's of the ReLearn Love model, and you talk about, you know, ReLearn, you've got that spelled interestingly, because if you look at your website, you've got the R lowercase e, then capital LEARN. Why? Why do you have it that way?
Nobody's ever asked me that before, but I love it. But I really feel like there's this lack of understanding that you already learned love. You already learned it, and the way that you learned it is just, I'm tearing up. I'm tearing up just because I know like what people have lived through and what has been modeled for them, and how lacking that is of what is actually possible for people. And it makes so much sense based on the amount of hurt and loneliness and pain that this world has gone through, that we are at a place where we are so angry. You know, anger is just a way of defending our boundaries. And so it makes sense that we're like, that there's so much anger right now. It's like, I don't feel safe. People don't feel safe and they don't feel heard. And if we don't have the tools, if we don't have the tools to really go out there and express ourselves and be heard and receive help and receive love, it's going to be harder and harder for us to connect. It's going to be easier and easier for us to push love away and to push support away and push the connection away. So I just keep coming back to this idea that if we all had a little more compassion and grace with ourselves and understanding that our parents and caregivers are the best they could with the tools they had, but what we learned is holding us back from connection and from depth and from love and from juiciness, it would change so much. Because it's like, okay, if you don't know how to ride a bike and you want to learn how to ride a bike, you say, okay, I'm going to go learn how to ride a bike. And you'd have so much grace and compassion with yourself in the learning process. But because we have this idea that we're supposed to be good at this thing that we're just not, we're not good, and we didn't learn the things that are going to help us. In fact, we learned the things that are probably going to deter us from getting what we want. It's a losing game that we were taught. Like, how do we change the game and change the rules so we get to have the love that we desired? And that's where we have to relearn. We already learned, we have to kind of undo the mess and relearn what's actually going to work. That I think we, going back to the model of Christ already modeled this for us. We learned this. We know this in our soul, how to love. No matter what your religious, spiritual beliefs are, I believe that when we were born into this world, we know how to naturally love. We are such beautiful, tiny creatures who just have nothing but love to give. And we lose that over time because we see other things modeled for us. So how do we come back to heart? How do we come back to soul and find this? And this is where the ReLearn Love model comes in. We have to choose to get curious first and say, I don't know what I don't know. Maybe what I know is actually not working. So let's get curious and learn what actually works. Then we move into the cultivating knowledge. This is where you're going to learn what actually works. This isn't a fluffy subject anymore. Love is something that's been so well researched. We have exact recipes for how to navigate conflict, for how to be with our emotions, for how to create connection that's meaningful. We just have to learn it. And you have to find the right fit for you. Not everyone's going to want to work with me, and not everyone's going to want to work with somebody else who has like a doctor or a therapist. Doesn't mean they're good. And it doesn't mean they're the right fit for you. Like, you got to find the right fit. And then we move into, after you learn all the fun things, right? As a relationship junkie and a personal development junkie, I love this learning phase. I could be a student forever. But then we got to have the rubber meet the road, right? You have to move into see for change. And this is where we're actually changing our way of being. We're having accountability. We're using the tools when it's hardest. When we go into our trauma responses, when we want to go back to how we saw our parents handle communication or conflict, when we want to push our emotions away, this is where we say, no. We're going to change this. We're going to actually use the tools. And then finally, when we do that, when we have this new way of being, we get to then celebrate. The fourth C is celebrate. And it's so important because I feel like most of us are living in a culture where we're never good enough. It's never enough. There's something broken with you if you're single. If you get engaged, it's not enough until you're married. When you're married, it's not enough until you have kids. When you have kids, right? It's like a never ending. It's never enough. You are never enough. And we can't just be happy and be in our current emotions right now and celebrate. So when we go through that, we got curious, we cultivated knowledge, we changed. And when that change happens, those critical moments, when you choose not to fight the way you usually fight, when you choose to feel in a way that it feels scary and vulnerable, but you do it anyway, that's when we celebrate. And that really cements it into our body of this is the new way of loving. And that I believe, and not even believe, I see it changing the world. And I want that for everyone.
Okay, so I want you to just list now those 4 C's, because as you were talking about it, you were using the words and like, all right, there's 1 C, there's 1 C. So
first one is get curious. Curious first.
Curious. Okay, number 1, get curious. Number 2,
cultivate knowledge.
Okay.
Number 3, change. Actually make the change. Yeah. And number 4 is celebrate.
All right. So you talk about communication a lot. And, obviously, communication is something that is probably the least understood how to do it well. And yet it's the most important thing in our lives is to be able to learn to communicate. And So let's talk about that a little bit. As you look at what are the challenges for people in their communication skills, and how do they improve communication,
Mm.
at least from their point of view? And then the third question is, if I change my communication skills,
Mhm.
and am I going to see a change in my wife's communication skills or my partner's communication skills?
I love your questions. These are so good. All right. So, biggest challenges in communication. Biggest challenges are we didn't learn how to communicate. And there's so much good knowledge out there. So, number one, I would say learning how to listen is one of the most incredible skills you will ever develop. You don't, if you are listening to me and you are, or your partner or your child, if you're listening to them, I put that in quotes, and you are thinking of your response or how you're going to defend yourself, or you're noticing other things around the room and you're not fully present and really hearing what they're saying, and not just hearing, but you're starting to sense into the underlying feeling behind it, you're not really listening. If you're not giving your full attention, like eye contact and like nodding your head and being present, you're not really listening, and they're not feeling listened to. They're not feeling heard. So number one, we got to learn how to listen. Number two, we need to learn how to communicate in a way that the other person can receive us. I mean, I can just shout how I feel at somebody. It doesn't mean they're going to get it. And so much of the time, we feel like we're communicating because we're just verbally vomiting, but the other person isn't receiving it. So what's the point? It's not being received. So we need to make sure the message is getting through. And there's so many beautiful skills we can learn around how to do that. Some of them just being around how we communicate presence. Some of them around how we invite people into the conversation instead of just throwing something at them. It's like, oh, my wife was staying in the kitchen and I told her how I was feeling. I'm like, was she cooking? Was she able to give you her presence? Did you say it in a way that she was going to receive you? Or did you just like word vomit? And it makes such a big difference to feel really heard. And on top of that, we can learn about body language and about how do we create a space to really talk. If we're trying to talk in the middle of grocery shopping, it's probably not going to be as well received as if we just say, let's go to the park and sit down on a bench and really like give each other full presence and talk about this, right? Are you available for this conversation? This invitation is so big to emotionally prepare somebody to have a drop-in time. It changes from a dialogue and everyday banter to like, we're really here to hear each other and learn. And then I love this question. I learned this question from my husband. My husband and I have been married. This year will be our 10th wedding. We get married every year if we decide to get remarried. Our commitment is not until death do us part. But every year we tune back in and see how is the health of our relationship and where is this going. And he asked me this question. He's like, what does it mean to you? And I have to say that one question alone has changed the way I work with my clients and with my kids and with my husband, the way they show up. What does it mean to you? Because otherwise, when I hear somebody speak, I have all sorts of projections of what I think they mean. But if I drop in and say, but what does that mean to you? What is this thing that you want mean to you? What does this feeling mean to you? They have a whole different life. They have a whole different lived experience. It's wild. It's not mine. And I am so often surprised and blown away by, wow, this is not what I thought it was. So truly being able to communicate and understand something that's meaningful behind it is going to be one of the most powerful things we can do, not just in love, but in leadership and life. It's like, whoa, if we can communicate so much as possible and get off the text messages. I mean, there's a time and a place for text messages, but we, at the end of the day, are animals. We need to see each other's facial expressions. We need to hear the changes in the tone of voice. We need to see how our skin changes color or how our breathing changes based on what's being said. There's so much information that's nonverbal that we need to see that we're losing touch with by doing internet dating, by doing texting all the time to handle communication. Like, we need to come back to the art of being in connection.
Well, and I love what you talk about there. And when you talk about the first point is listening, and I think listening with understanding. And maybe for the audience, just a good example, as you were going through the 4 C's, I suddenly said, okay, I want you to go through one more time. Just list them for me each time. And as you say, our perceptions are so different. It would be so interesting for us to be able to listen to what someone is saying and then ask questions say, okay, I'm not quite sure I understand what you meant by that. And that's where you're talking about getting into their reality and really understanding. And then, as you say, and I love this part, as you then respond to them, the question is how are you responding? And, as you say, you've got your body language, you've got your words, you've got your tonality, and all of those things can affect the way that they perceive how you're communicating with them.
Yes.
So
much.
So much. And, and I tell this story too, and I laugh about it. I get into the personality profiling and all of that type of stuff. So I happen to be very much, anyway, a combination of introvert and extrovert, left brain, totally left brain. Okay. and so, my kids for a while, they're going, oh, Dad, I realized, okay, so I learned this when I was going through some programs. So I now stop with my kids as we get into communication, and they're asking me a question. I said, all right, I want to know, do you want me just to listen, or do you want my opinion?
Yes.
and you know what? I had to do that because they felt like I was criticizing them when I honestly was loving them and trying to offer, quote, sage advice.
Because you're a wise dad. Yeah. I get it.
And now it's like, and we laugh about it. It's like, all right, you want me to listen, or do you want my opinion? And a lot of times, all right, Dad, just listen, or no, I really would appreciate your opinion. And I think that's come when they become adults more. But I think it's so important for us to understand that, we get into the personality types and how we communicate, and understand that, our body language, our words, how we do it is so important, and understanding how the other individual wants to be communicated with. And it's not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah. I mean, for me, if someone talks and talks and talks and talks and talks, it's like, just get to the point. Just get to the point. Okay. My daughter, who's more left brain, extrovert, is like, let's talk. We'll be on the phone. I'm going, okay, honey, it's time. Oh, Dad, okay, I'm talking too much, right? I go, yeah. And we laugh about it. But the point is that based on our personalities, we talk the way we think we should talk, but we don't understand that that's not maybe how the other person wants to receive that communication.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong, right? But it's that awareness of these are two different personality styles, and where's the win-win for us? Like, what is the sweet spot where we both feel seen, heard, and loved? And that's the magic. Okay, so way to go for you guys figuring that out.
So your opinion, and this happens all the time in relationships. When your partner triggers you, how do you handle those emotions? What do you do? Now, I mentioned a little bit of what I would do, but I'm asking you, when your partner, because obviously you've been married 10 years, you've got a great relationship, I'm sure you have those triggers. How do you handle that? How do you handle those big emotions when you get triggered by your partner, by your husband?
Yeah, quick caveat. Of course I get triggered. Of course he gets triggered. Like, we all get triggered. And even as a relationship expert, I still am like, I've got the tools, and it's hard to use the tools all the time in a great way. So what do we do? Chapter 5 of my book is going to have really clear guidance of step-by-step some stuff you can do. The TED Talk is going to have some really great stuff on what you can do step-by-step. There's the important thing to know is that everybody gets triggered, and that's okay. And one of the greatest things you can do is just pause. Give yourself a chance to pause, to break the old pattern. The old patterns you've been practicing for decades. So now we get to try something new. So whatever your trauma response is, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, just pause. And I love finding creative ways to do this and have some fun and bring in some humor, because we know that there are some fights that are just going to be unresolvable conflicts for the rest of your relationship, and that's okay. But we don't want these conflicts to be taken so personally and to last a week of disconnection or more. What we want to do is get it down to the situation arises, you feel the trauma coming in, you feel the trigger coming in, the overwhelm is happening. You both learn how to create a safe space for the pause and go take care of yourselves for a moment, because it's not about the situation. Like, as you said, it's not about the situation. So take a moment to pause, go take a little bit of space and agree upon what does that actually mean. Usually it's about 20 minutes. And here's what you're doing in that 20 minutes. We're going to just do some checking in with our emotions. That emotion coach we did earlier, you can do that with yourself. Like, what just happened? What am I feeling? What is this reminding me of? And what do I need right now? That's a great one. Just taking some breaths or journaling can be really, really helpful. But how do you allow yourself to be with those emotions? I love doing it, like being in my body more. I really believe that our body holds a lot of tension and trauma. So, doing some of the breathing and jumping and shaking, or hit some pillows. We have pillows in all over our house. And whenever we have big emotions, our kids know we're going to go to the pillows and we're all going to just hit pillows together just to move some of the energy. And then we can think more clearly. Because you feel that charge, right? It's like, oh, some people are like, I want to hit something. I'm like, great, then go hit a pillow. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt anybody else. Just go hit a pillow. Great. Or I want to scream. Great. Cover your hands into a pillow or cover your mouth with your hands, or cover your mouth with a pillow and just scream for a minute. Like, trust your body that it wants to move this. And once it's moved in a way that's not hurting anybody else, then emotion coach yourself. Then just breathe and think about, when have I felt this before? It's reminding you of something from your past. And that's where the golden nuggets of information are of, in my past, this is how people would respond to me. This is how lonely I felt. This is how angry I felt. And here's what I really am craving. Here's what I really want. And you can start to learn how to ask what you want and take ownership of, well, shoot, babe, like, I know we were in this fight. And I know that you just want it. Like my husband, I have this example of hot sauce. Like, I ended up buying him dinner one night and getting not enough hot sauce for him. And he felt not considered, which is his big story of, it just pulses through his life. He's not considered enough, right?
Right.
And then so then he doesn't feel considered because I didn't get enough hot sauce, which was just a mistake, right? Life happens. And for me, my big woe is me story through my whole life, we call it core wound, is I'm not good enough. So as soon as he goes into I'm not considered, I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough. I didn't get enough hot sauce, right? And it's always this, not always, but almost always these same big underlying stories that I have felt since I was a little girl, and he has felt since he was a little boy. And right now we're making it about the situation, but it's not. And I can come back and say, babe, I wanted to fight you on this, but I see I'm just feeling not good enough. Can you be medicine for me instead of like spiraling into this disconnect? Can you just tell me that I'm good enough even when I made a mistake? And he's like, yeah. And can you just tell me that you actually were considering me and you didn't forget about me? I'm like, yeah, I am considering you. I was thinking about you. And I'm so sorry that I didn't know to get the extra hot sauce. And this is where we get to build connection instead of having the old wounds just perpetuate and become more and more poisonous.
Well, and you brought up something else that I think is so important, and I experienced this. You get into the situation where you're not happy with each other, and as you say, you go and beat pillows. And I can imagine what happens. Your kids watch you, you're watching each other, and all of a sudden that anger turns into laughter.
Oh my gosh! You know how many pillow fights we have? It's ridiculous.
And so it's so fascinating if you can find ways that you can do that. I know that we watch a lot of movies that, kind of this kind of stuff, fighting and so forth. And every once in a while, after we've had some kind of trauma going on there, we kind of look at each other, we put our fists up, and we go back and forth like that, and we start to laugh, and it's over. Yeah. It's over. So to be able to bring humor and laughter, ultimately find ways to do that. And, that takes a conscious effort. And I know you talk a little bit about conscious relationships, and I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about that, the conscious relationship, and how do you have those relationship agreements. And obviously, and as we get closer to the end, I'd love for you to talk about conscious relationships and how do we do that.
Yeah. So in general, the idea is most people stop being intentional about their relationships after they say I do. And I just want to invite into the idea that there's so much more possible. And if we tune into what is it that we really want, even in the first dating phase, when you guys are creating a partnership, What is your foundation like? What do we want it to be? And so my book, Relationship Agreements, is all about how we take these assumptions and expectations, and instead of having them stay out there, we talk about them and we write them down. I love Google Docs. Super easy to edit. It's a living document. It's going to change and evolve over time. You're going to be different 6 months from now. They're going to be different from 6 months from now. And your relationship is going to be different 6 months from now. So letting it evolve over time and talking about, okay, well, what do we really want and why? What does it mean to us? And that could be everything from how we handle finances to how we handle conflict, to how we communicate. Maybe it's really important for me to get a good morning and a good night text from you. And that's really like something that's meaningful for me. Can we just agree to that instead of me getting pissed off when you don't send me that, right?
Yeah.
Because you didn't know, right? Or our roles and responsibilities around the house, or how we're going to parent, or how we're going to continue to invest in our intimacy and explore together, right? Like all of these things are things that I think people take for granted. And we develop these recipes that feel really comfortable, but stagnate over time. So instead of letting things stagnate, it's like, how do we continue to choose to lean in and choose to evolve together? This is conscious relating. And I really believe you can create whatever you want from this space. And when things aren't working anymore, you say, this is not working for anymore. What do we need to shift? And we create a new agreement. And then we can move forward to that new agreement. And there's so much freedom and safety in it. It's wild. So that is really what I invite people to do, is create a blank canvas and create the relationship you want and allow it to evolve. And maybe check in once a quarter, whatever feels right for you. Go on a little staycation or a vacation somewhere and just be like, how are we doing? Is there any friction points? Am I noticing judgment towards you, or am I feeling judged by you or about this situation? If there's that friction point, this is when we begin the ReLearn Love model. Again, this is when we get really curious because there's this judgment. And we're going to go get the tools we need to move through this and create a new way of being. We're going to actually start using the tools, and then we're going to celebrate, because it's really fun to celebrate that we're evolving together. We're a team. Oh my gosh, how cool is that?
And it takes two.
And it takes two. It really does.
Yeah, it takes two. And I think that's important for folks to understand, that it does take two. But also, and I don't know if you've seen this occur with the people you've coached and so forth, have you found when you work with the one individual and they really start to experience that self-love, and as they start to learn how to communicate, do you find sometimes that their partner suddenly starts to come along? Yeah. Even without doing any of the coaching?
Yeah, I know you asked a question earlier about, like, if I start using these communication tools with my partner. So I think I didn't really speak into that, but it's not always.
No.
Sometimes people get in partnerships where one person is really focused on growth and development, and this is important to them, and the other person is so happy just in life as they are, and they don't need anything more, or they don't want anything more.
Yeah,
probably more like they don't want. This can be a really difficult combination in partnership. Super hard. I imagine, like, there's somebody driving a Ferrari and is ready to go, and the other person feels like they're being dragged behind the Ferrari. And so nobody feels great. We want to be as a team together in the driver's seat together. And so many people just need that invitation to see what else is possible, because their nervous system, their lived experience hasn't had any evidence yet that we can shift. So if one person is making that shift, the other person can see it and see that it's real, and it's not just some hokey thing they saw in a movie or something that feels so distant. They're like, oh my gosh, like, if you're doing this and you're happier, I want a bite of that cake too. Like, can you share that? And all of a sudden we have a new thing to talk about, especially if you're coming at it from not a higher than or a holier than thou standpoint. Right. It's like, no, this is who I am, and I'm so excited to share with you. If you want to join me, you're welcome to. That invitation versus a power dynamic. It's really, really beautiful. And I think that's where I see the biggest shifts of, it's okay if you're taking a step on your own first, and see how they respond when it's an invitation for them to try this too, because it's just going to make life more fun. And then see what happens. And if they still are not interested, then there's something else to look at there.
Yeah, then you have to make some other heavy decisions. But, it's interesting. And I love what you talked about as far as you and your husband, how, and I don't know how often, but you should say, all right, how are we doing? What, the fact that we do evolve, that we change, and how can we continue to be together with those changes and work with each other and understand that, to me, that is such a key element to a successful relationship.
Oh, yes.
I love that. So as we close, and we've talked about you have gotten so much good information that you've shared with us. What would be kind of a final message that you'd like to share with the audience?
I would just want to say that it is so possible for you to learn a whole new way of loving in a way that is going to set you free. It's going to create freedom and safety for you to be authentically yourself and still be loved, and for your partner to be authentically themselves and still be loved. And it takes courage and patience to lean into this idea that you get to be a student again. You get to learn this thing that your heart has been craving, that is possible. You just need to learn how to do it. So if you can lean into that and relearn love, everything is possible.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And how do the people talk a little bit about your book again, and how do they find that? And then how do they find you?
Yeah, easiest thing to do is go to relearnlove.com. That is easiest place. You're going to get everything. You're going to find free master classes. You're going to find paid programs where you can just do it yourself if you want. You're going to find ways to work with me. They're in a singles program or private coaching for singles or people in relationship. You're going to find access to this book and the audio book. You're going to see a link to my TED Talk. Everything is there. All these podcasts, this podcast will be on there. So we just want to make it a one-stop shop of awesome resources. And you can also go to Instagram, which is at Coach Ari Kardosh. And you're going to have lots of wonderful things. Now, if you sign up for like the free masterclass or anything, you'll be on my email list. I love to connect with people. Reach out to me if you have questions or want any support. Like, I really am here to make sure that the world gets the resources they need to relearn love. And I'm just so grateful to be on this show with you, Dr. Doug. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, and I appreciate it. Now, are you able to go on to Amazon also?
Yeah, so the book is on Amazon and on Audible. So
good, because
I
use Audible, and I love Audible.
So. Me too. So you'll get to hear my voice. I actually recorded it, and my husband Damon helped me with the other. There's a male voice in the book too, so you get to hear both of our voices on it.
Oh, wonderful! Hey, Ari, thank you so much.
Yeah,
this has just been fantastic. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Doug. Amazing. Have a great day. And thank you everyone for tuning in. It means a lot.
Yes. And thanks, folks. And hope you'll join us again soon. This is Dr. Doug saying namaste.
Namaste.